thrilled to be speaking today with Anna Tsui, who is a genius coach. She's an international writer, speaker, and serial entrepreneur. Anna has developed a proprietary process to help people identify and click into their unique genius. She's the founder of the Intuitive Business School, and her best-selling book, Shadow Magic, Turn Your Fear into Fuel and Create a Prosperous Coaching Business, shows readers how to overcome their personal self-sabotage so that they can build a thriving career and business. And you can download half of Anna's book for free by simply going to annatsui.com/book. Welcome, Anna. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me. What a great intro.
It's great. It's great to meet you today. So we'd all love to hear more about what the genius coaching is. You know, what makes this unique to the more traditional kind of coaching. So I will pass it over to you.
So have you heard of, some people have read the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, where he talks about zone of excellence and zone of genius. And zone of excellence is basically where, especially if we're thriving in our career, we're doing something that we're really good at, right? Maybe it's analysis, maybe it's strategy, maybe it's chemistry, whatever it is, right? And so we get rewarded for a zone of excellence. However, the sweet spot is what he calls your zone of genius. And the most frustrating thing is in the book, he doesn't tell you how to get to your zone of genius. And so it was something that I was struggling with. I didn't necessarily know I was missing my genius. But what I was doing was I was showing up in my business, I was showing up in my life, and there was a part of me that I just couldn't see. And everything that I was doing, it felt like it was just a little off. Like I loved my business, I loved my life, but something felt disconnected or something was missing. And so basically, I accidentally took myself through this process where I journeyed into my genius. And this is where I discovered that your genius isn't necessarily a skill. It's not a personality test that you can take, because personality tests are very logical. It's like, okay, Anna is a Myers-Briggs INFJ. This means INFJ, this means this, and Enneagram, this number, this means this. It's very logical, but your genius is something visceral. It's a place you have to get to. And so I kind of accidentally developed this process that now I use to help people get into their genius, which allows them to tap into this flow state I call genius flow, where the things that we want to create in our lives come to us easier because we're just being our natural, authentic selves working in our genius. And so that's what I mean by genius coaching. And it's something that's kind of hard to describe. But if anyone has ever had that experience where they're missing a part of them almost, right? It's probably your genius.
That's fascinating. So it's working from the inside out rather than, the usual way of looking at the externals. So it's going right in the inward journey. And, you talk about going into the shadow to find the magic. So it's where you find that genius, where you find that treasure, which can be in a different place to where, some people would imagine, yeah?
Yes, that's such a good point, Natalie, because our shadows keep us from our genius. And I was just speaking to someone this morning who she loves doing analysis, right? She just loves doing that on a high level, but her shadows are like, can I make money doing this? Is this just a waste of time? Our genius, sadly, is also the thing that we discount the most. So for example, someone that I work with, she's a copywriter, and her genius is actually being a seeker. So she loves researching, she loves reading, and she also needs a lot of rest. That's one of her standards for her genius. But because she has, a young family and a career, that's the last thing that she wants to do. But when she gave herself permission to do that, her copywriting business began to take this really interesting niche. And so she realized that she doesn't just write for anybody. She writes this intelligent copywriting for people with interesting minds, right? For people who are non-traditional. And that has really enhanced her business, just being able to be in her own natural energy. So definitely it comes from within. It's definitely the thing that we give ourselves the least amount of permission, because our shadows are like, we don't have time for it, right?
It really reminds me of the quote by Oscar Wilde: "Be yourself, everyone else is taken."
Yeah. but we don't know how to be ourselves. We're trained out of it.
Isn't that interesting that that's our default? And yet, really, would you say like children are good at being themselves, but then it's taken away?
Yeah, the natural interest that children have. I want to touch this. I want to learn this. And then we stop them, right? Because sometimes it's dangerous and sometimes they have to brush their teeth. And so we as adults, we also have that within us. But specifically, there's always a specific thing that we enjoy doing more than anything else. Some people, it's going on an adventure. Some people, it's creating works of art, right? So these parts of us that we ignore. But when we come back to that, we actually find it's what holds our genius. It's what holds these unique ideas that can be birthed into the world if we only allow ourselves to be ourselves.
It's so different from that sort of drive state that we have. I mean, certainly very much in Western culture, I think just worldwide, this is drive state of like, gotta be doing, gotta be achieving, how many things can I cross off the list today? Like that type of thing, which is a lot of activity, but it's often like spinning your wheels.
That's such a good point. And Armand, I'm being reminded to rub my Buddha head right now for some reason. But so this is actually can you feel it? So this is the Buddha of abundance. And this reminds me so much like what you said, which is when we're not in drive state, we can still have abundance and it actually can come to us a lot easier. But because we're so busy, sometimes our ego is just proving ourselves that we're doing something valuable, that we're being productive because we're so busy in that strain. We forget about abundance and ease and wealth that can come to us easily. I mean, why not, right? If we have to work really hard and kill ourselves to make money, why can it also be easy? It can. And so being in that genius state, giving permission for us to be receiving, right? That allows also abundance and all that to come in. And the drive, I love what you said, the drive state. I feel like you should write a book on that. That drive state is, it's a real socially, it's a kind of collective unconscious shadow, right? And it's, yeah, it can be detrimental.
I used to walk down the hall quickly. Just people would see that I was, running from place to place. And, oh, he does a lot, This is great for my reputation.
Yes, as your branding.
Yes. So the way things go. But I mean, that is so much what we value is this kind of, always busy, always on. We talk about people who are sort of stuck in jobs where they're working 60, 80 hours a week. And on the one hand, it's like, that's terrible. But on the other hand, it's a little bit of like admiration, I think, from a lot of people about that. And it, it sounds horrible to me, but, it is that kind of going somewhere.
Yeah, you get it.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect. You gotta do something to be somebody, right? And everyone's trying to be somebody except for themselves. Yes, Natalie, sorry.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that. So it's kind of running away from themselves. And also, would you say it's because they're trying to be like someone, they have a sort of model that they're following, or?
Yeah, when our cup is not full, because we aren't, I would say my language would be, we're not in our natural genius and we don't have confidence around what we need to thrive. So, for Kate, the copywriter, she was a seeker and she just didn't have that confidence to go to the library for 3 hours, right? And then take a nap because she's a mom, she's an entrepreneur, she's not supposed to do that. And so when we don't have that confidence to be ourselves, and Natalie, you said it so well, we just want to be like everyone else, right? Because we're like, I got to be like somebody, I got to fit in somehow, I got to be productive. But for some people, actually giving yourself the time to be yourself and do the things that fill you up, that's the most productive thing you can do for yourself. And I'm not sure in the world of astrology, but in the spiritual world, I know for a fact that the divine feminine is really, it's like the next era, the divine feminine. So not pushing, not competition, working collectively, right? Creative, receiving, that's coming, right?
It's Uranus is in Taurus, which is that divine feminine. So interestingly, genius is associated with the planet Uranus, the planet of genius, and which has been in Aries for many, many years. And Aries is the very male factor of, aggressive, dog eat dog, just thinking about yourself, rather than others. And now it's, Taurus is the feminine, the divine feminine, which is more relationship orientated. So it's like, to be balanced, you have to have the two, really, to, have your own identity and know what you want, but also to get on with people and know when to, know when to pull back, know when to, go for it. Yeah.
And Regulus, the royal star, has precessed from Leo into Virgo, which is a feminine energy kind of thing. So it's that's a big 2,500 year shift or something like that. So you definitely see that happening. You definitely see that shift taking place.
And the Aquarius as well, the Aquarian, the age of Aquarius, which is, you could say that is the age of people finding that genius that you're talking about, Anna. Finding that spark, that if everyone was doing that, the world would be a much happier place, wouldn't it? If everyone was.
Yes. And how long is that going to last? Another 2,500 years? That's like added incentive.
We're just at the beginnings, maybe, aren't we?
Both, but yeah, both will last about 2,500 years. So we have, certainly most of our lifetimes will be spent
laying the foundations, sowing the seeds for that.
Yeah.
This is great. This is so great.
So it's so on trend what you're doing, isn't it? It's so, of this time, for this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what about, I feel that a lot of folks feel that they're following the thing that they want to do, that they sort of sense that this is the thing. And it could be, something, Reiki healing or astrology or something like that. Like they're sort of like, this is kind of the thing. And yet they have a lot of trouble kind of turning it into something. I think maybe because they follow sort of like an outdated model of the way things should work or something like that. But on the other hand, I'm not sure what model to use. Anyway, just.
Yeah, no, that's great, actually, because a lot of times we want to be responsible and follow, business model. I've always gotten, I've always received business coaching, all these different levels of coaching and healing. So I am also very sensitive to other people's models and paradigms. And I see it as being responsible, right, and coachable to, bring into my business templates and stuff that work. And I've discovered that the best business template is not just, us being in our genius, but also our conversation with the universe. And I learned from Armand that there's just like waves, right? And why not ride the wave that's happening? And so like when we're connected with the universe, we get to ride the wave because we get to communicate with it. The problem is most of us, and this is why I wrote Shadow Magic, most of us are in this kind of unconscious trapped fear state of, if I do something, is it going to work? Right? If I set my intention, is it going to come? Can I do this? Isn't it scary being seen? Or I want to be seen, but there's parts of me that feel like it's unsafe or people will judge me. So the universe, right, doesn't communicate with words. So I can't say, hey, universe, I want a thriving business. All right, I'm going to receive it. The universe just sends who you're being. And if I want a thriving business, but I'm being pretty chicken and not courageous in speaking my truth and owning my worth, then the universe is just going to say, oh, so Anna loves this dichotomy of being stuck in her own human potential. Great, let's send her more of that. And so I think the best way to thrive is really to tune into who you're being. And are you having this conversation with the universe so that you can really optimize like the energy that's there? And obviously, like, I love what both of you do. It's about riding the energy, being aware of the energy. I'm not always aware because I got stuff going on in my life. So I look to people like you to help me be like, okay, so the age of Aquarius, right? Uranus is in Taurus. Okay, great. This gives me vindication and validation for what I do. And I think we should do more of that, just listen.
I find that when people do things like affirmations, right? They say they're saying positive things. There's the negative, like the antithesis of it comes up like in the back of the brain. You can almost hear it. I am successful and wealthy, and you're like, I'm poor. You can almost hear that. Is that something people should be doing? Is that something you should be aware of what they're doing?
Yeah, so this is I'm so glad you mentioned that because a lot of the tools that we've been taught work really well when you have a clear slate and you can just be like, I'm wealthy. Oh, right. I'm wealthy. But we don't have any of those human experiences, right? That show us, well, your bank account actually doesn't show that you're wealthy. And so I think I call it being in your sovereign state. So it's a state where, and people who are good at pretending and acting, I think have an advantage, right? Because you're kind of just being, you're focusing on your being. And if you can focus on, so let's say, I want to be wealthy, right? And it's like, what in my being, if I was wealthy, how would I feel? How would I go about my life? I would actually feel very wealthy with the things that I do have, and especially the things that money can't buy. So in this cup is coffee from Latin America. This is a cup that a good friend of mine gave me from London, right? And I don't know, like, it's something that's invaluable to me. And so I start really seeing the things in my life that are wealth. And then I just feel more and more wealthy. And doing that, just feeling wealthy or feeling happy with whatever we have, right? That does more for manifesting than a million vision boards with like happy, smiling people, because the universe sees who we're being, not our vision boards all over our walls, not our affirmations. Especially if there's the Chinese word is 矛盾, especially if there's like a conflict, right? Like, I want to be happy, but I feel like being happy is not accessible for me because that's a shadow. Then the universe just sees you being in this like constant battle with yourself, when really you can just bring it down, bring it back to, what am I happy with right now? And just being in that happiness moment, that does more for manifesting than like anything else, any list of things.
That's interesting. And visualization, visualizing that, the power of visualizing how you would like things to be, and as you said, kind of almost tricking yourself into thinking it's already happening, which will attract it, or it has more
Yes.
chance of, by doing certain things, changing behaviors. And as you said, like that expression, faking till you make it, maybe there's something in it.
Yes, if you can really feel it.
Yeah.
And, like Armand said, if there's a voice in the back of your head and you notice it, right? I think it's a good step to have a conversation with that voice, or do some tapping or shadow work, whatever it may be, because, that voice is actually really powerful. So there's something I call shadow marketing, which is we have these doubts that come up whenever we want to set a goal, or actually right after we hit a big goal. It's like our personality kind of expands and all these shadows come up. And actually those shadows are really, really valuable, because for someone like me who's in the coaching world, right? Like, what I'm feeling as fear and doubt, I guarantee you all of my people are feeling too. And so when I can step into that fear and look it in the eyes and maybe like, give it a hug, versus running away from it or trying to destroy it, which is a very masculine thing. Like, I'm going to destroy this part of me. When you can actually just own it, I call that being in your sovereignty, and you kind of have these shadows that actually help inspire a lot of your creative potential. So it's really good.
Befriending it and realizing that, it will always be there to some degree, but it's about making it smaller and realizing it, seeing it for what it is. And you talk about, the two different parts of the mind, which is very, very interesting, how you talk about the executive mind, the cortex, and the survival
shadow mind.
yeah, the hindbrain, and those two in conflict.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because your shadows will hijack everything. And self-sabotage is a word that I hear a lot of people use, and that's exactly what it feels like, because you're going after the goal, but then it wakes up this part of you that's like, it's not safe to be seen, right? It's not, you're never going to make it. And it's, a big part of it is our ego. It wants to keep us safe. But so many times people are running their business from their fear-based mind, from their reptilian mind, from their ego, from their shadow. And we don't realize it. And so for everyone who's watching and listening to this, I just want you to know that you're probably operating from fear-based behaviors. So if you're like, I'm not going to market today because, like, I don't look good enough, or, or I don't feel like it. And what's under that? It's probably shadow, right? And so that's probably what's running your business. If you're not saying your prices or making offers because you feel there's a part of you that's like not confident in your pricing, that's a shadow thing. So before we know, we're like, oh, every aspect of my business is actually run by my shadow, which is a great thing to realize, so that you can be, like you said, in your executive state.
in the innovative, so the shadow mind will always look back, it's repeating the past, and it's not innovative, is it? Because it's based on, it's like having fire and emergency part of your brain, that's on
Absolutely.
high alert. And so from that place, as you said, you can't really create the dream. But as you said, it's like a default state, isn't it, where people can be in, wonder why their business isn't happening, because they're not in the right mindset for. And that's what you
Yes.
help people with through all the different things that you
Yes.
do. Yeah.
And tying that to what Armand said, like that's when you get into like, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to get more certifications. I'm going to, work to make sure that I feel worthy. But until you address the shadow, the fear underneath of worthiness,
Yeah.
that's never going to go away. And you're just going to, have a lot of certifications, but still feel like a fraud.
Yeah, especially if you're outside of the mainstream, the certification, it's that need for certification is so, and people have stacked them up. I mean, some of them are good, and it's great to learn things, but the idea that you'll eventually get enough credentials that you'll believe yourself.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
the problem. Also, competition is something that I think is strange, even in like the spiritual new age world, whatever you want to call it, even in the helping professions, that the sense of competition, which really doesn't need to be there at all. I mean, I never think about that as something, but it a lot of people feel competition. I
Exactly.
got to get my customers or clients.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you're tapped into your conversation with the universe, when you're just tapped into your internal self-confidence, you really do see, wow, there is more than enough for everyone. And the last thing that I want is to work with a client who probably is not the best client for me and would really benefit someone else. And the moment you do that, it's like your ideal client comes. It's really crazy, but it's something that when you're really connected to your value, which you're right, like no certification can give you that, but when you're really connected to your self-value, it becomes a homing beacon for your clients. And what I've noticed is when we're really able to speak our truth, when we're really confident in our genius, we might say some pretty weird things for a lot of people, but for our ideal clients, they're like, that's exactly what I've been waiting for. That's exactly for someone to say that, right? And I've been exactly looking for this person that has tons of certifications or has no certifications. We just don't know. There are people looking for the exact frequency of us. And until we can actually be really confident in ourselves, they can't get that. They're just getting kind of like a watered down version of you, which is very sad to me.
Yeah, that sounds so, that resonates so much. I've also found that, clients, the ones that you get are the ones that you want, if you don't play the game of just taking everybody who comes by. You can cause yourself some misery with that.
Yeah, because they fill up your container, they fill up your space. And some people, when they take a lot of your energy because they're non-ideal clients, your container will be like, I need to heal from this. I can't hold any more people, even though they might be ideal people, right? So there is an opportunity cost. And so that's why there's just more than enough for everyone, because there's someone who would love that person that's taking up all your time and energy, Yeah.
Do you find too, it's something that I've noticed, and I think I've talked about this with Natalie, that there are times when you're thinking it'd be great to have some clients, and clients show up, and then there's times when you're doing some other project, maybe writing or something like that, and you say, oh, we have a lot of time, and all of a sudden, like, the phone goes dead and nobody's bothering you or not, it's not a bother, but nobody's asking you for anything. The sense that when you have that sort of flow, that you can also let go for a little while and be okay.
Yes, our main job is to fill up our own energy. And I know there's like different, kind of like human designs, like different types of designs, but I think everyone's job is just to be in their authority, be in their own energy. And that's why it's so important for people to hire practitioners like all of us, because once we get clear on who we really are and how our energy works and how it interacts with the universe, it makes things so much easier. So now I do not feel bad when I just need to watch Netflix. And if anything, when I'm in that zone, when I'm doing things that just fill me up, I might not get a million clients coming my way, which I used to think I want that, but I might get one client that is the perfect client, and that's all I need. And so I think the universe can work in this really, in a way that really feels in alignment with us. We have to align with ourselves first. Absolutely. And the thing is, that conversation with the universe, you got to keep that open. So I launched my group program. This is very recent, actually, like a few days ago. So I launched my group program, and I was like so divinely inspired. I'm like, okay, this is great. I put it out there. Crickets, absolute crickets, right? And then I was like, okay, but I understand that that's actually how it goes. So I wasn't worried about it. I was like, okay, universe, like, what am I inspired to do next? And so next, I was inspired to do some posts. And then next time, I was inspired to teach this class that's going to happen right after our call today. And I got a few signups, but then I was like, what's going on? And then the inspiration was basically like, you have some good friends that know a lot of people who really need this work. Why don't you just ask them to send out the event? And then before you knew it, like without any ads or anything, like people are still rolling in. I have almost 200 people registered for this event that I only posted like once or twice on social media, but I asked my friends, right, if they would send it out to people that they knew or to their email list. And that's all that it took. Like I could have been for days emailing everyone, taking out ads, doing, which I would have done in the past. But I just trusted, right, from this place of fullness, the inspiration I was getting step by step, trusting every step, even though one post led to zero and another post led to nothing. But actually, it led to an energy buildup and momentum, which then, caught on. So don't judge the things that your intuition tells you. As long as you hold on to that trust and that belief that it's happening for you, it's happening, right? That's it.
Tell us a little bit about intuitive business model, because I feel that intuition is something that is often considered to be anathema to business.
Yeah, and it can be such a subtle voice, can't it? The intuition. I find that it can be almost a whisper, yet it's so powerful. And it's
Yes.
feelings, and I find that I go with my intuition, and I'm getting better at it. But it's sometimes a very soft voice.
Oh, absolutely. And just like our genius, it's really easy to ignore because the voice of the ego and the shadow and the fear is so great. And so we do have to find a peaceful place for us to be in our intuition. And I think actually some of the most successful people, whether or not they would say they're intuitive, are very intuitive. And intuition is something that it collapses time, right? So it takes you so much less longer to do things than you would just through effort. And I think an intuitive business model is definitely knowing who you are and your energetics. That's so important, because I'll tell you why. Intuitive people, and I guarantee you, everyone who's listening, watching, all of your folks, right, are super intuitive. Intuitive people, we learned growing up, we had to build up walls to keep from going crazy and to keep other people's energy from just being all over us, right? And so we build these walls, and sometimes we build walls to our own psychic abilities because we're just like, I don't know how to handle it, right? It can feel like a lot. And these walls also keep us from our greatest levels of expansion and receiving wealth and self-expression. And so when we have someone help us, and it's so essential that we have people help us and that we invest in people helping us, we begin to see who we really are, how our natural energetics operate, how our natural genius operates. And then we can actually connect to someone who has that confidence in seeing who we are, because sometimes we aren't confident in that yet. And I know I wasn't for a very, very long time. And so having people on your team, on your side, to help you really know yourself, to help you trust that intuitive voice, eventually it'll get to the point where, I'm not really, I don't see dead people, I don't hear things, I just have like a knowing. And it's really easy to be like, my knowing is telling me not to eat this ice cream cone right now, but I just really, really want to eat it. And you can be aware of like different parts of knowing. And then when I don't eat it, I feel great. And then when I do eat it, it's fine, whatever. It sets me back a little bit, but I have a lot of fun. It's all good. It's all life. But when we get into the knowing and trusting it, That's the thing. A lot of people, we trust our intuition when it's easy for us. But when it's saying, hey, post this story, post this thing that happened to you, right? Share that. And we're like, no, I don't want to share that. What will people think of me? Right. And that could have been, and the times I've done that, I've gotten amazing, amazing clients, right? Because of that. I'm talking like tens of thousands of dollars just from posting a post that intuitively I knew was important, but viscerally it did not feel good and I couldn't sleep at all that night. But your intuition always knows. And if you can trust it, and you don't have to do something crazy, but the steps that you can take to trust your intuition, maybe it's not eating the ice cream cone. And then you go do something that's, inspires you or something, or eat the ice cream cone. So when you can trust your intuition, that is the journey to being your most powerful self. So the question is, do you want to take that journey to be your most powerful self and have the most powerful business? Because when you make that commitment and you really make that decision, then source speaks to you in a different way. And I really want everyone to know what that feels like when you're really alive in your decision to thrive. Source interacts with you in a different way, but also you interact with yourself in a different way. And I don't know what the name is for that, except that you just decide in your sovereignty, this is what you want. And you have a conversation with source, right? Through your intuition. And then things begin to change for you. But they're so subtle in the beginning that you have to have that trust, whether it be, like connecting with your advisors or coaches, but you have to be able to trust, especially in the beginning, those little steps so that you can take the bigger steps to growth.
Here's one for you. The fear of success, which I used to have doubts that such a thing would exist. But I think it is a thing. Can you speak to that? It sounds like very much what you were just talking about.
Fear of success. Yeah, that's huge. Actually, I'm really curious. Have you had experience with that, Armand, or maybe through one of your clients, or fear of success? How does that show up for them?
It's change. It's change, right? Because you kind of in the abstract, you think something would be terrific. And then you realize that there's going to be, that you're not going to maintain the status quo if you're successful. That something is going to have, a lot of stuff would change that you might be happy about, but then it's going to change. Things are going to be different. Like your ego is pretty happy where it is in its own way.
Yes.
Even happy and being unhappy. And I think that's where fear of success comes from.
Oh yeah. And if you, a really great journaling exercise is, I'm afraid that if I'm really successful, ... I'll have to give up this. I'll have to do this. And so if you do that journaling exercise, you'll be shocked at what you come up with. I'm afraid if I'm more successful, I won't get to spend as much time with my kids. I'm afraid if I'm more successful, then, family members will ask me for money. It's just stuff that it doesn't need to make sense, but fear of success, it's a real thing. I'm afraid if I'm more successful, then people will be jealous of me and my neighbors will think this of me and my friends won't like me anymore. And a lot of it is unconscious. And if you can identify those unconscious beliefs, guess what? They're not unconscious anymore. So you can actively notice when they come up and when they stop you. So most people, these unconscious fears, will stop them because they know they're about to hit something really big, really important, right? And they're really excited about it, but then they just get sick for some reason. And it's like, oh, well, I can't do this launch right now. I'm feeling really sick. That's just self-sabotage. Or their life gets crazy. That's also self-sabotage. But if we're aware of kind of like our triggers, if you will, then we know, oh, okay, this is just me really scared that if I succeed, then I won't get to ever see my kids again, right? And then you can do something about it. So fear of success is real. And you're right, it's absolutely a fear of change. Anything that's different. Yeah, and it could be better or worse. It doesn't matter. It's not logical.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else, actually, before I cut us off and say thank you so much for being, is there anything else that you wanted to say or anything else that you wanted to promote or put out there or
I want to say thank you both for this time. And also, I learned something from this interview, which I will also be sharing with my people in terms of like, the astrological weather and what's happening. And I just want to encourage folks, like if like the shadow stuff, you feel like that's coming up for you, there's a reason why I share half the book for free, is because there's a lot of resources in there that you can just use, like download it from the website. And I'm on social media if anyone wants to connect. But this has been so much fun. Thank you both.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I've so enjoyed it. It's been so great meeting you. Thank you.
Everyone go conquer.